Utah's large load tax bill signals a new approach to infrastructure stress. States are beginning to adjust how they manage infrastructure strain, not through new generation mandates or grid reform, but through tax policy. Utah's newly introduced Senate Bill 231 targets large load customers, defined as properties with cumulative electricity demand of 100 megawatts or more within 5 years, and restructures how property tax revenue from those facilities is distributed across the state rather than concentrated locally. It also prohibits local governments from using tax increment financing to incentivize projects that include large load customers going forward. While the bill is technical, the signal behind it is not. States are starting to treat extreme electricity demand as an infrastructure stress issue, one that carries fiscal, planning, and equity implications beyond the project boundary. Large loads are no longer treated as local development wins. For years, large energy users, particularly data centers, advanced manufacturing, and industrial campuses, were framed primarily as economic development assets. Local tax incentives helped attract projects, and infrastructure upgrades were often justified as growth investments. SB 231 reverses part of that logic. By redistributing property tax revenue from large load facilities statewide and restricting tax increment incentives, Utah is effectively decoupling local economic development benefits from infrastructure-intensive projects. The bill acknowledges that while the economic upside of large loads may be local, the infrastructure burden they place on the electric system is not. Transmission capacity, generation planning, and reliability impacts extend far beyond municipal boundaries. Infrastructure stress is moving into fiscal policy. What makes Utah's approach notable is not the definition of a large load, it is how the state is choosing to manage the downstream effects. Under SB 231, large load customers are required to notify county auditors and treasurers once contracts are approved, and utilities are not obligated to serve those loads outside of explicit contract terms. Incremental costs must be allocated to the customer, and curtailment provisions are built into contracts when demand exceeds supported capacity. Taken together, these provisions reflect a shift in posture. Infrastructure stress is no longer treated as a future planning issue. It is being priced, tracked, and constrained at the point of approval. Why this matters beyond Utah. Utah is not alone in facing rapid growth in electricity demand tied to large-scale users. States across the Mountain West and Sun Belt are seeing similar pressures from data centers, advanced manufacturing, and electrified industrial projects. What SB 231 illustrates is how states may begin responding when infrastructure expansion cannot keep pace with demand growth. Rather than accelerating build-outs, which face permitting, cost, and timeline constraints, states may turn to policy mechanisms that redistribute risk and reduce incentive-driven demand concentration. For companies evaluating site selection or expansion, this introduces a new variable. Local incentives may no longer offset infrastructure constraints. Tax structures may shift to reflect system-wide impacts rather than local economic benefit. Implications for facilities, energy, and strategy teams. For facilities and energy leaders, the takeaway is not that large load projects will stop, but that the rules around them are changing. Projects that rely on assumptions about incentive availability, tax treatment, or guaranteed service may face new scrutiny. Infrastructure readiness is becoming a gating factor not only in permitting, but in fiscal policy itself. For strategy teams, the bill underscores a broader trend. States are increasingly aware that unchecked load growth can destabilize systems faster than they can be reinforced. Managing that risk may mean fewer carrots and more guardrails. A preview of what's coming. Utah's SB 231 is unlikely to be the last policy of its kind. As infrastructure stress becomes more visible and more politically salient, states may continue to experiment with ways to slow, distribute, or condition large load growth. What appears at first glance to be a tax distribution bill is better understood as an early infrastructure signal. Demand is outpacing systems, and states are beginning to respond in ways that will reshape how and where large energy users are allowed to grow. You've been listening to Sustainability Soundbites by Environment and Energy Leader. For partnership opportunities, please reach out to our team.